Kelly Nieto is a convert to the faith, a Miss America runner-up, brilliant storyteller. Her production of Cross and Light has been energizing audiences for almost 20 years now. Thank you so much for being with us, Kelly.
Well, thank you, and Bishop Reed, great to talk to you. And Kevin, I didn't know you were a musician.
Just a little bit.
That's awesome. You want to try out for Jesus?
I'm not worthy.
You can grow that beard again, Kevin.
Well, thank you. I'm going to tease something a little bit. You're going to share some exciting news a little bit later on in our little interview. But before you get to that, tell us a little bit about Cross and Light, the beginnings of it, how it inspired, what inspired you to write and produce it?
Well, I'm so glad. Day, Good Friday, and this is my anniversary. The first time I ever set foot in a church on a Good Friday was 19 years ago, the night before becoming a Catholic. And I had such a powerful conversion experience. I spent 35 years wanting nothing to do with God. I was a New Ager. I absolutely hated the Catholic Church, and I didn't believe in Jesus. And here I am becoming a Catholic in 2000. I went to the Stations of the Cross for the very first time, and during the second station when Jesus is being flogged, I began to feel horrific pain, and I was sobbing. My husband was there with me. And when I looked over the altar, I saw the most beautiful vision of Christ's love and mercy poured over a world in desperate need of Him, and are walking away. And I will never forget this vision. It was at Our Lady of Sorrows in Farmington Hills, Michigan, where I became a Catholic. How providential is that? Our mother led me to the foot of the cross to have this great vision. And then what was really, I think, the exclamation point on this vision was that I heard God say, "This is why you're here." I spent a lifetime in pain and suffering with several very rare diseases, and I spent my childhood on a couch in pain. I was suicidal in high school because pain and suffering made no sense. And then here I meet Jesus, and I see that the greatest suffering in the world, our Lord allowed Himself to be crucified out of love for us, and brought about the greatest gift, the salvation, the redemption of the world. And I understood then, becoming Catholic, that God said to me, "This is why you're here." This vision was my call, was my mission. And I was 37 at the time, and it changed my life. He didn't tell me how to do it. He just showed me what could be if I said yes. And so I spent the next 19 years working my tail off, but putting my feet on the ground, putting my boots on the ground and saying, "Lord, what do I need to do today to get this out to the world?" And we've had 165,000 people from Australia to San Diego to Detroit to Florida, across the world, see this and be transformed by the love and the mercy and sacrifice of Jesus.
So born out of this conversion experience of yours, Kelly, Cross and Light is a Broadway caliber event about the Lord's passion, death, and resurrection, as you say, for almost 20 years. What's experience been like for you over those years? Have you grown and deepened in your faith? You must have.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I had an 8th grader tell me one time, this is great, out of the mouth of babes, right? He says, "You know, Mrs. Nieto, the problem with God is when you work for Him and He gives you a little job and you do it, then He asks for something more," right? Our God is always saying, "All right, that was good. Now here's your next task," right? So along the way, trying to figure all of this out, I felt like I was in darkness. And Thy word is a lamp unto thy feet. God only gives you the grace for the moment to try to take one step at a time. And that is what develops the trust. There were so many miracles along the way. There were so many failures along the way. And I think I learned more from my failures and my humiliation than anything with God. And then, of course, there were successes along the way, and dealing with Catholics in the church as a visionary who had this vision for the church 20 years before, we really got a hold of what the new evangelization is all about. So at times, I have to say, I felt like I was trying to sell an iPhone to people in the 1950s. I had this vision. I want to bring this to the world. And the church really wasn't ready for it 20 years ago. And yet right now we're seeing this explosion of faith and these incredible prayer warriors across the country rising up in the laity to help the priests and the religious, because really this new springtime is coming from the laity becoming engaged in their faith. So I learned to trust God. I learned that God doesn't care about me being successful. He cares about me being obedient so that I can grow in my faith. And along the way, there's so many funny, hilarious miracle stories. I just got finished writing a book, and I found that I learned more in the middle of my mess than anywhere else. You know, you meet God right there in the middle of your human mess, and he's right there with us, walking with us. You don't have to wait to be perfect to be on a journey with God. So it's called My Holy Mess. It's coming out in June. I'm really excited about the stories. And even my kids who have read it said, Mom, I had no idea all these miracles, all these, twists and turns, successes and failures, a lot of tears, a lot of praying.
Wow. I love the title to that book. We look forward to seeing that a little bit later. So let's get to some of that exciting news. Could you share with us about extending the reach of Cross and Light?
Well, it's it's how God works with me. In February, the end of February, I was sitting in my driveway and he said, shut the show down. I mean, I heard loud and clear, shut it down. The live show, we have $500,000 worth of equipment in a semi going across the country, very expensive production flying, a 13-man crew out with all of our equipment. It's a tough thing to manage as the executive producer, also being a mother of 5. And God said to me very loud and clear, shut it down. And I spent 2 days fighting God. And you know how that goes. I had my Job moment. How could you do this? How could you ask this? But I was obedient and I shut it down, and I called the churches for 2020 and I said, we're shutting down. God must have a different plan. 2 days later, I was on the phone with multiple Grammy-nominated producer, songwriter, arranger, Michael Omartian. You have to look him up, Omartian, Michael Omartian. He has worked with every person you can imagine in this industry. He's been on projects, over 3.5 million projects. He's the only producer, arranger, songwriter who has had a #1 hit over every decade in the industry. And he calls me up and says, Kelly, I love your music. I love what you're doing. It's authentic to the Bible. You're not telling a different story like Jesus Christ Superstar or Godspell. This is our story as Christians, Catholics, Protestants, evangelicals. This is our story to unite all of us, and we can take this to the world. And he asked me the question, the greatest question I've ever been asked, and that was, do you want me to write your Broadway musical?
Wow.
Or do you want me to write your movie soundtrack? And I fell to my knees and I just sobbed, because this has been the hardest thing I've ever done. And every day I feel like I'm in darkness. God gives me those little cookies in the dark along the way, but we've never had an angel donor. We've spent over $1 million, our family, in putting this together to tour this. We've only had about $90,000 in grants and donations along the way. So, people see it and they go, this is so magnificent. You must be this New York company. No, I'm a mom in the suburbs with 5 kids figuring this out at 3 o'clock in the morning. You need a website? Build it. Get on Google. You need to learn to be a video editor because you don't have money? Okay, learn it, build it. God doesn't call the qualified.
And that website, Kelly, is crossandlight.com, right?
You can go there and you can help us by donating.
We're gonna do that. We're out of time. We have to go to the news, but we're gonna go to crossandlight.com. Kelly, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for your tremendous work and your inspiration. We loved hearing about your conversion, and happy Easter to you, may I say that.